Sup, YouTube? This is Big D and Shade.
Yo.
And welcome to Takoyaki Bites. This is where we're going to give our opinions on one show this season and
Give you some bite-sized information on what we think of different shows that we are watching throughout the season.
so the first show I have on the list is Gate.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
This one started off a little slow for me.
Yes.
But it's definitely starting to pick things up. It's a little interesting. I mean, because it has a lot of the premise for the action and the fantasy there, but it seems to take more into the humanitarian type look of things, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah. It's like from the trailer, you would think that it's
Just
mostly
action.
Yeah, just mostly about tanks versus fantasy creatures, and it's just, but no, it's mostly kind of slice of lifey about the military and the different people that they encounter in this different world. So, yeah, I do like how it has its action parts, which was really really cool, but then it has the regular everyday parts, and it puts that little twist with military people interacting with the fantasy people. So I do like how everything's tied together.
Oh, yes, but the action, and I'm sure, I'm almost like 99.9% sure that the fight with the dragon, especially with the dynamic camera angles spinning around the dragon as they're going on the Jeep and going through it, I'm thinking in my head, oh, Big D just gonna love this whole aspect right here. Just the dynamic and the look of it. I'm like, yep, this is all him. I can appreciate it, but I'm like, I know you would appreciate it way more than I do.
Yes. The scene looked really, really cool. I liked how epic it was because it's like, oh, let's get away from this thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm back. Ah!
Yeah.
And one thing that took me away from it, it's the CG dragon. And I'm like, it's a really, really cool fight, but they still, this series doesn't blend the 3D in well enough to where it fits. I don't know if they need to take some of the frames out. Like if the dragon's at 30 frames per second and they're only animating on 15 frames per second or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but the dragon never ever looks like it's there.
Yeah.
So,
the one thing that takes me out of it is I appreciate it, and at the same time it takes me out of it. The fact that they keep going back to this world, they want to make it so different, and they're like, there's actually a different language in this world, and I can appreciate that. I like the aspect of that, and at the same time, it takes me out of it because I'll be like, okay, they're talking in a different language and they're having to translate, and there's this cross like communication where they're like not quite understanding each other. That's cool. And then they go off on their own, and I'm like, now they're talking in Japanese, and it seems like I'm like, wait, did they? What?
Yeah.
You weren't talking that before. You were talking a different language. Why are you talking Japanese now?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, yeah, I appreciate the aspect of it, but I don't think that it translated over well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I do like the scenes, especially like when the guy he's talking and it's
he has to keep referencing that manual, going, okay, what do I say here? What do I say here?
Yeah.
And it sounds, like I said, I'm sure you're about to say, it sounds really cool. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I like that. And then later on, you're like, those same people that were having such a hard time trying to understand them are now talking in Japanese. It's like, what?
Yeah. There was another show that did that where there was a planet with it was Earth, and it was covered in water, and everybody lived on ships, and then there was this war in space, and one of the guys got stranded, and he ended up landing on that crashing on Earth, and they picked him up, and he had to do the whole language barrier thing going too. And I remember how, well, it's he didn't have a book. His robot translated the language, and I don't know. I like how they did it there, and I like how they do it now with the book. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it's like I also appreciate the young apprentice, how because
Yeah.
the way she's doing it, it reminded me of an old movie, The 13th Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see that one?
No, I don't.
It's with Antonio Banderas, and the cool thing about that is that he was from, I think they had him coming from Arabia or whatever, but it's a Viking story.
Mm-hmm.
So he's with all these Vikings who are, Norwegian, and they're speaking this language, and he's traveling with them, and he's saying nothing, but you just see him watching, studying, and slowly as they're going along, he keeps picking up words, and you'll start hearing the words being almost translated into English as he's doing it, as he keeps kind of trying to mimic their sounds and seeing what they're doing, and eventually one of them says in reference to him, since they think he can't speak their language, and he replies to them, and you it's in English, but you know the way he's saying it, and then the looks on all their faces, the fact that he said it in their language, and you're like, oh, haha, he just learned your language, aha.
Nice.
And I kind of get that same feeling with the apprentice, is that she's slowly beginning to unravel, the language and everything, so she can actually communicate with him. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I appreciate that,
Yeah.
So, and I like how it's obvious where things are heading, as far as the potential harem aspect of things.
Yeah.
It's obvious where this is heading, but it's not so much that the girls themselves are the stereotypical girls in that aspect. I mean, the elf girl kind of is, but she still has, I think, a strong female role, and I think the rest of them also have that as well. Because the apprentice is always like trying to learn things, always trying to, strike out and do things herself, and she, has kind of the stereotypical pervy sage mentor or whatever.
Yeah.
But she's still, she's the controlling factor in that, and I like that. So it defines her character and gives her more depth in that regards. And then the apostle,
Yeah.
that's a very interesting aspect of something I'd never quite thought about before. Having the apostle, this lollygoth looking girl, but she's she can freaking handle herself.
Oh,
And
shit.
she's freaking demented in some aspects. You're just damn, can you? Oh, I mean, good job, but
Yeah. When she showed up walking down the road, I was like, oh no, everybody's dead.
Yeah.
And then all the kids are like, oh, so, hey, how you doing? And I'm like,
And she's just all kind of not nice to it. I'm like, yeah, I was like, is this the same person?
yeah, I'm like, whose side is she on? I thought she was just killing people because she was bored. I don't know.
Yeah, or, more blood for the blood gods or something like that, so.
Yeah. And then she was like, they're all like, oh yeah, and inside the Humvees are all, they're like, oh, it's comfy inside. And she's like, oh, really? Like, I'm gonna go sit inside too. And I'm like, no!
She freaking sits on his lap, and she's like, yeah, this is really comfortable. He's like, can you get off now, please? Could you please? Please? And I'm looking at go, dude, I understand. I really do, because you're just like, I don't know how to react to this. She seems scary because she has a big axe, but she's just sitting in my lap really calmly.
Yeah, they were all worried because she has this big axe, and me, I'm terrified because she just murdered a bunch of people. So
Well, even if you didn't know that, it's like
Yeah.
seeing that huge axe, I'm like, okay, obviously you know how to wield that. You're not necessarily seeing like you're encumbered by it, so I'm a little afraid of that. So,
I don't know.
but just like we were saying before, the underlying the slice of life and the humanity type storyline behind it, because even though there's this the battle between our world and their world and whatnot, it's not even like that's not even the focal point.
Yeah.
Because like the focal point is you know you're seeing their life, but at the same time there's this whole thing with the king who pretty much uses the fact that we're coming over into their world as an excuse to take all of his enemies and be like, go kill them because they're invading us, and then we just mow them down.
Yeah.
So then it's like, you know, you're looking at the king going, okay, you're kind of conniving and evil in a lot of ways, you know. So
I am curious about how the different nations on, I guess, the futuristic side of the world is going to affect how things are going to work, because
I almost don't even want to see that aspect of it. I really don't. I'm
yeah.
like, go away. I want to see what's going on in the fantasy world. Just go away.
Yeah.
But anyways, keep going, keep going.
I'm trying to figure out like what would happen, because it's like it's just a doorway. So
Yeah.
I'm like, we're spending most of our time in the fantasy land, and we see the actions of the kingdoms and the guy tricking all the other generals and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
then he's basically going to just take over a bunch of different places. And then you got the dragons, which are just like, you know what? I'm going to go burn up a village today. Ah.
Yeah.
And then you have the villagers that are all over the place. And I'm like, all of that is on the fantasy side. But then on our side, they're like, resources, and can we profit off of this and that? And I'm like, I don't really care. Like,
No, yeah.
the most that can, I'm like, from as right now, I'm thinking the most that can happen is what they break the gate and then everybody's just trapped in the fantasy world.
I don't think they'd ever do that. I really don't. I don't think that'd ever even be a part of it because it's too valuable of a resource, and exactly what they've said. It's because, I mean, think about humanity in itself. I know we're going way off topic on this, but thinking about humanity in itself, the fact that back in the time frame where we were in Europe and we didn't necessarily know about all the vast continents and world around us. Once we did start to know that and we did start to travel out there, it became a race.
Yeah.
It became a race to see who can muster up the most land and claim the most land and get the most resources and get the most people and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what they're implying and leading towards here as well, is that, you know, eventually once all the nations see that the world on the other side is pretty much a just more land and more resources in that sense, I can totally see that everyone's gonna be like, okay, we're charging full steam in. We want to get, you know, as much of that land and much of that, you know, for us, and yada yada yada. I mean, there may be a war going on the outside, on the other side, but I can still see it's going to end up being the same. You know, the human mentality and thought process of yes, more resources, more land, more power to us, and whatnot. You know, it's going to be there. So
Okay. Well, I see that this is going to be 24 episodes, so I can see them getting into a really good story. I'm just curious how much is going to happen in the real world, because
I hope very little, because I'm more interested in what's going on in the fantasy world.
yeah, because like even if the people from the modern times go in there, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, they can hold their own against the other people, but when they get to the dragons, you can't really. They can't.
No, they need more like heavily, you know, artillery than what they're packing right now to be able to make
Actually,
even a dent in that.
Yeah, the guy said that they got like hand-me-downs. Basically, they don't want to risk sending all their good stuff over there.
Yeah, well, it's just in case on those survey missions that they end up losing or having to abandon the equipment.
Yeah,
They didn't want to have like the best equipment fall into the hands of the enemy or something like that. So,
okay.
which I mean makes sense, but it's still kind of crappy on its own, right?
Yeah.
So
This one 3 or 4 episodes in, I think. I can't remember.
4.
Four? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're 4 into it so far.
20 to go. I'm ready.
Yeah. I don't know. With everything they're setting up so far, it seems I don't know. I hate to call it early on, but it almost seems like they have too much potentially going on to finish it up even in 24 episodes, really.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they've started, they've just barely started to hit the the tip of the iceberg, at least in my point of view. So I really think that they're gonna really push forward on this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anything else for you on that?
Oh, no. I'm just...
Okay.
Um, all right. And that's been Takoyaki Bites. And we will see y'all next time. But...
Bye.